Hey, hey, hey. All right, so grab your notes that say 5.2 Mendelian Genetics Extended. And so grab your notes, make sure you're writing extra notes and highlighting things that are important. And do make sure you're watching these videos and paying attention, because I'm going to probably review the videos a little bit less in class on this unit just because there's so many activities that I want to do. So make sure that you're really listening and paying attention. Okay, so the first thing is complete dominance. And that's what last night's video was really about. Mendelian genetics said that the flower was either purple or white. It wasn't like lilac or polka dot. It was completely dominant. And so it says the dominant allele has information that is expressed, even if there is only one copy. Genetics call this 100% penetrance. So I want you to, underneath complete or beside complete dominance, write Mendelian genetics. And then just as an example, I want you to write example purple/white flower. So the flower, as you can see in the video here, in the picture, is either purple or white. So that's like Mendelian. That's what Mendel came up with. And Mendel chose, I guess God was looking out for him. Mendel chose a really easy organism. That plant, the pea plant that Mendel studied, purple, white. The seeds were either green or yellow. The seeds were either wrinkled or round. The plant was either tall or short. So it was like all of the characteristics of that plant were like completely dominant or recessive. There was no mixed dominance. And we know that in real life, in other organisms, that's not always the case. So the first of the examples of, so the next three things, incomplete dominance, codominance, and multiple alleles, all three of those are what we call non-Mendelian genetics. Like, it's not perfect. It's not purple or white. It's a little different. Okay, so incomplete dominance, take a look at the picture. A red flower and a white flower make a pink flower. Okay, information from both alleles is expressed. Neither phenotype is completely penetrant. Therefore, the heterozygous phenotype appears. Just here, I want you to circle the word blended. Okay, I want you to write in example. Japanese snapdragon, and that's what you can see right there. That's a Japanese snapdragon. So purple and white make pink. And in my head, I always think this is like human skin color. An African American person and a Caucasian person make what we commonly call a mixed skin color. A black and a white make a mixed skin color. Now, that's never the example in any textbook. I guess they don't want to offend people, but who would they offend? The blacks or the whites? But anyway, that's just an example in my head. It makes sense. Black skin color is dominant, and white skin color is dominant. And so when they have a baby, both show up. The black and the white are mixed together. Okay, so that's incomplete. Neither one is completely dominant. Okay, codominance, I guess I can get a picture on this one. But codominance is where they both show up. They both are expressed. So circle both expressed. They are both equally present in terms of phenotype. Example is going to be like a cow, a polka dotted cow. You see the brown and you see the white. Like, they both show up, not mixed, but they both show up. So it says black and white coats in animals, or AB blood type in animals or humans. Okay, example for AB blood types. Someone has A blood. That means it's always written as an I for some reason. If someone has A blood, that could mean they have the dominant A, because A is dominant, and then a little lowercase is like an O. Or they can have capital A, capital A, so that's like homozygous dominant. They can have just O blood. That O is recessive. But wait, some people have a dominant B blood. So there's actually, on codominance, there's actually, it could be A and it can be B. So it's like polka dotted. You have A blood and B blood. They both show up. But since we're here talking about this, this is also an example of multiple alleles, which is the next thing on your notes. There's not just a big A and a little a. There's an A, there's a B, and there's an O. So multiple alleles is, you want to underline or highlight, where there's more than 2 alleles. And the best example here is going to be AB blood type. Okay, so more than 2 alleles. And let's go ahead. Okay, so if you're looking at this picture, if you have A blood type, that means that you have the surface protein A. If you have B blood type, you have the surface protein for B, so you can see that. And then AB blood type, you have both, A and B. And then O, you don't have any surface protein. So you can see like A blood type has the antibody for B. So A blood type would fight off B blood if it was injected in. B would fight off A. AB would not fight anybody as far as blood type because they are used to having both. And then O would fight all A and B blood type. So somebody with O blood can't receive blood from somebody with A or B. But somebody with AB blood type can receive blood from anybody. So AB is really, really selfish. It can receive blood. Okay, so AB and O blood typing, that's 3 different alleles. There's A, there's B, and there's O. So that's why blood typing is an example of multiple alleles. It says the glycoproteins, that's just the sugar attached to the proteins, of red blood cells is a classic example. Those are your antigens, the A, the B, and the O. One dominant allele results in the presence of A antigens on the surface of red blood cells. Another dominant allele results in the presence of B antigen. So A gets A blood type, B gets B blood type. Okay, and then if you look down at C, it says that the universal donor would be O. O can give blood to anyone. Universal recipient would be AB. So AB is the recipient, where O is the donor. So take a second and pause the video and check out this table. Look at it closely and maybe you can make sense of this because it takes a little while to understand this, I think. Okay, so a pedigree is really just a family tree. We're going to go over this tomorrow in class a little more. But circles represent girls. Squares represent boys. And then you can see right here, like this means that this man and woman had 2 children, and they were both girls. And then that girl married that boy, and they had 2 girls. But you can see where this would be beneficial if you can't see someone's genotype, but you can see someone's phenotype. You know, my great-grandmother had this trait or this trait. So it's just easy to look back so that you can predict. And normally, if the shape is colored in, that means that they have the disorder. And if the shape is not colored, then they don't have the disorder. Or not even disorder, it could just be trait, like shown in the picture. A widow's peak, which is like, when I think of a widow's peak, I think of Mickey Mouse. Because Mickey Mouse had, you know, his little face like that. Or not a widow's peak, like this one. Attached earlobes or not attached earlobes. So a little earlobe hanging. Okay, if a disorder, so now we're going to talk about disorders, are recessive, what that means is that the only way you have the disorder is if you have 2 of the same allele. You have the recessive trait. So kind of like the flower is white. you could be heterozygous, carry the gene to be white, but you're not white, you're purple, or the flower's purple. And so recessive disorder is where in order to show the disorder, you have to have both recessive. Okay, so only in, underline for me, homozygous recessive, there can be carriers. Okay, right out beside carriers, write for me like big letter, little letter. So that would be heterozygous. 50 in terms of passing on the allele. So they may or may not pass on the allele. So you could be heterozygous for some disorders and not even know it for some recessive disorders. Okay, so an example, and I want you to know 2 examples of recessive disorders. The first one is cystic fibrosis, also known as CF. Most common in Caucasian people. Cystic fibrosis is more common in white people than it is any other race. It says European descent. 1 in 2,500 births, so that's pretty common. There's more than 2,500 people that go to the high school and the middle school put together. So there's probably 1 or 2 people at least that are cystic fibrosis. Okay, in Caucasians, it's 1 in 25 people are a carrier, so heterozygous. So a lot of people, probably, could be somebody in our classroom is a carrier that we don't even know about. Okay, this disorder creates a faulty chloride ion on the cell membrane of I want you to circle the word lungs, because that's where it's really affecting. Okay, and what it does is it causes fluid to build up in the lungs. It's almost like pneumonia, but all the time pneumonia, just cough and cough and cough and got mucus in their lungs. Basically, people end up drowning in their own fluid. Bacteria is able to get into that fluid and cause an infection. Treatments, since remember this DNA is in every cell, so there's no cure for it, but they can do lung transplants. So it says there's no cure. Patients have to get the fluid drained so they can cough it up or get it drained, and they actually make vests that people can put on. They make vests that people can put on for cystic fibrosis, and it shakes their chest that helps them cough up the stuff. Okay, so cystic fibrosis, what I really want you to know is that it's recessive and that it makes mucus in your lungs. Okay, the next one is sickle cell. We were looking at a picture of that already. But sickle cell is where your red blood cells are supposed to be shaped like this, but instead all of them or some of them are shaped like sickles, or like crescent moons is what it looks like. Most common in African American. So cystic fibrosis was Caucasian, but sickle cell is African American. Now that doesn't mean all, or it doesn't mean like Caucasian people can't have sickle cell, because that's not true. It just says it's most common. Okay, affects 1 in 400 births, so more common. Again, recessive. What it does is it affects one of the amino acids. And see, like the amino acid chain is supposed to be this, but only one is changed. Holy smokes. One amino acid is changed, and all your red blood cells are shaped like moons instead of donuts. Well, it causes a problem because it hurts. The red blood cells, when they go through the arteries and veins, it hurts, like when weather changes, or they're more prone to get sick. But people with sickle cell can definitely live a long, normal life. People with cystic fibrosis cannot live a normal life. They normally die at an earlier age, like 30s would be a long life for someone with cystic fibrosis. Where people with sickle cell can live a long life. The neat thing about sickle cell, really cool thing actually, is that someone who has, okay, so this would be me. I don't have sickle cell. No one in my family has sickle cell. I'm not a carrier. I'm homozygous dominant. Okay, this person has sickle cell. They have full-blown red blood cells shaped like crescents. Okay, but here's where the moneymaker is. this person. They don't have sickle cell. They have the dominant gene not to have the disorder. But because some of their red blood cells are crescent shaped, not all of them, but some of them, they can't get what's called malaria. And that malaria is a protozoan that makes people really sick in Africa. It's kind of like the flu in Africa. It's like they have a resistance. So underline the word resistance to malaria. And that's called heterozygous advantage. Okay, so can't get malaria in Africa if you are heterozygous. So that's your moneymaker right there. That gene is. So it's actually good to be a carrier in certain parts of the world. Okay, so like we said, no cure because it's a genetic disorder. You have the gene for sickle cell in every single cell of your body. So there's no cure for that. Some medications to help with pain or to increase oxygen because your red blood cells carry oxygen. So people with sickle cell have less oxygen in their body. So there's medications to treat the symptoms, but no medications to cure it. Okay, so 2 recessive disorders were cystic fibrosis, mucus in the lungs, and sickle cell, which were funny-shaped red blood cells. Okay, dominant disorder, achondroplasia is the first example, and that's dwarfism. That's what we commonly call dwarfism, is achondroplasia. Now, there's lots of types of dwarfism, but achondroplasia is the most common dwarfism. Okay, so dominant disorders, so this person is either capital letter, or capital letter, lowercase letter. You and I are normal height. Okay, so achondroplasia, we said, is short in stature, only 1 in 10,000 births, and I'm sure you've seen a dwarf before. I remember when I was little, and I would go to church with my grandmother. My Sunday school teacher was a dwarf, and I was just so intrigued that she was my height because I was I was little. But most people are actually, your notes say most people are homozygous recessive, which would be my height, and therefore much taller. So achondroplasia, just want you to know dwarfism. Okay, the last one, Huntington's disease, 1 in 10,000 births, so both the dominant disorders. And I'm not going to ask you those numbers. That was just kind of to let you know. It has a late life onset, so underline that. Huntington's disorder is where it affects the brain. And so if you've ever seen House, the girl, the show, TV show House, the girl on House that they call 13. She's like unlucky. That's why they call her 13. You'll see her and she'll be tapping her hands and she won't be able to tap as fast as she can other times. So what it does is the brain is degenerating or breaking down and your reflexes are not as fast. Your movements are not as fast. But it doesn't start like you're completely normal until later in life, like 40 or 50. And so people don't even realize they have it until they're older and have children. Seems like it would be really bad. But eventually people become paralyzed and they don't have any movement at all. And so this says family history is important in diagnosing this disorder because, you can see if your grandmother had it or your mom had it. It's a dominant disorder. So, okay, 2 dominant disorders are achondroplasia and Huntington's. Okay, with the counseling part, and that's the last thing we're done. With the counseling, these are individuals who run pedigrees using family history data, and now they can actually they've mapped the genome, so they can look at your DNA and tell you if you have a gene. Remember, chance has no memory, so like just because you had one kid that had the disorder doesn't mean you're less likely to have another kid or more likely to have another kid. If the Punnett square shows 25% chance, there's a 25% chance every time you have the kid. All right, well, I hope this was helpful, and study hard.